Hey everyone, you'd be surprised by how much revenge I got by the end of this story. So here it goes. I'm here because I don't really know where else to turn. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to tell, and I'm hoping maybe sharing my story will help me figure out what to do next. My name is James and I'm 35. My wife Amanda is 32. We've been married for 8 years, and until recently, I thought we had a pretty solid relationship. We live in a small town where everyone knows everyone, which made what happened all the more shocking. Amanda has always been into fitness. About a year ago, she started going to a local yoga studio. It seemed like a good thing. She was happier, more relaxed, and in great shape. I was all for it. I work in construction, specifically in demolition, which keeps me busy and often out of town for days at a time. I thought her having a hobby while I was away was healthy for our relationship. In the past few months, though, things started feeling off. Amanda became more secretive, especially with her phone. She'd get these texts late at night and would always step out of the room to reply. When I'd ask who it was, she'd brush it off, saying it was just her friends from yoga. Last Tuesday, I got home early from a job out of state. It was supposed to be a surprise. I wanted to do something special for Amanda, so I decided to join her yoga class without telling her. I thought it would be a fun way to spend some time together and show her that I supported her passion. When I arrived at the studio, I saw Amanda's car in the parking lot. Excited, I walked in and told the receptionist I wanted to join the class as a surprise for my wife. She gave me a strange look, but handed me a visitor's pass. As I made my way to the main yoga room, I noticed there was another door slightly ajar, leading to a private room. I could hear Amanda's voice. Curious, I peeked in and saw Amanda with Brad, her yoga instructor, in what seemed to be a deep, private conversation. They were sitting very close to each other, and the way they were looking at one another made my stomach twist. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language seemed intimate. Amanda suddenly looked up and saw me standing there. She quickly moved away from Brad, her face flushing with what looked like guilt or surprise. Brad just looked startled. I felt a knot forming in my stomach, but I forced a smile and walked in, pretending like I hadn't noticed anything unusual. "Hey, babe," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Thought I'd surprise you and join your class today." Amanda's smile was strained, and I could see she was flustered. "James, this is unexpected. I'm not sure you'd enjoy it. It's really advanced." Before I could reply, Brad jumped in. "It's great to have you here, James. Why don't you take a mat and join us?" I nodded, feeling a strange tension in the room. The class went on, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying the scene I'd just witnessed. Was it really nothing? Or was there something more going on between Amanda and Brad? I didn't have any concrete evidence, just a nagging feeling that something wasn't right. When we got home, I tried to shake off the unease. Amanda was quieter than usual, and I couldn't help but notice how she kept checking her phone. I wanted to ask her about what I saw, but I didn't know how to bring it up without sounding paranoid. So here I am, staying at a friend's place for a few days to clear my head. I haven't confronted Amanda yet. Maybe I'm overreacting, or maybe my gut is trying to tell me something. I don't know. All I know is that things don't feel the same, and I can't shake the feeling that our relationship might be in trouble. That's the first part of my story. I'll keep you all updated as things unfold. Right now, I'm just trying to make sense of the mess my life has become. Any advice or support would be appreciated. Update. It's been a rough few days, and things have only gotten more confusing since I first told. Here's what's been happening. After my unexpected visit to Amanda's yoga class, things at home have been tense. Amanda has been acting strange, more distant and distracted. I tried to brush it off as stress or something else, but I can't shake the feeling that something is seriously wrong. I've been paying more attention to her behavior. She's on her phone constantly, texting or checking her messages, and she's always stepping out of the room to take calls. When I ask who she's talking to, she gives vague answers or says it's her parents, friends, and so on. I want to believe her, but my gut tells me there's more to it. A few days ago, I decided to take a closer look. I know it sounds bad, but I went through her phone while she was in the shower. I didn't find anything incriminating, just the usual messages from her friends and family. But then I noticed a new app on her phone that I hadn't seen before, Signal. It's one of those encrypted messaging apps. I opened it and found a single chat thread with someone saved as B. I didn't have time to read through all the messages. But the few I saw were odd. Lots of jokes and inside references that didn't make sense to me. And then there were messages about meeting up for sessions outside of regular class times. It could be innocent, but it felt wrong. When Amanda got out of the shower, I confronted her about it. I asked why she needed an encrypted messaging app and who B was. She got defensive, saying it was just Brad and that they used Signal because it was more secure for discussing class schedules and private yoga sessions. She said I was being paranoid and that I needed to trust her. I tried to let it go, but the suspicion kept gnawing at me. I started noticing more little things: how she'd smile at her phone, how she'd leave the house for errands more often, how she'd come home looking different, like she'd been somewhere important, but wouldn't say where. Last night, things came to a head. Amanda came home late, saying she'd been out with some friends from yoga. She looked nervous, and I could tell something was up. When she went to bed, I checked her phone again, but this time she'd changed the password. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm going crazy, second-guessing everything she says and does. I love Amanda, and I want to believe her, but my instincts are screaming at me that something is very wrong. I can't shake the image of her with Brad in that private room, looking way too comfortable with each other. I'm at my wit's end. Do I confront her again? Do I try to catch her in the act? Or do I just trust her and hope this is all in my head? I hate feeling like this, like I'm some paranoid, jealous husband. But I also can't ignore the signs. I need advice, guys. How do I handle this without pushing her away or losing my mind? Any tips on how to get to the truth without making things worse? Update. It's been a whirlwind of emotions these past few days, and I finally decided to confront Amanda about everything. Here's how it went down. After discovering Amanda's encrypted chats with Brad, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, replaying every suspicious moment in my head. I knew I had to talk to her, but I needed to do it in a way that wouldn't immediately put her on the defensive. I wanted the truth, not another round of excuses. So I planned a casual evening at home. I cooked dinner, something she loves, spaghetti carbonara, and opened a bottle of her favorite wine. I wanted to create a comfortable atmosphere where we could talk openly. As we sat down to eat, I could see the tension in her eyes. She knew something was up. Amanda, I started, trying to keep my voice steady. We need to talk. She looked at me, her fork pausing midair. What's wrong, James? I took a deep breath. I've been feeling like something's off between us lately. You've been distant, secretive, and I've noticed you've been spending a lot of time with Brad outside of yoga class. I just want to understand what's going on. Her eyes widened, and she put her fork down. James, there's nothing going on. Brad is just a friend and my yoga instructor. We've been working on some new routines and planning events for the studio. That's all. I nodded, trying to stay calm. Then why all the secrecy? Why the encrypted messages? Why do you need to meet him privately so often? Amanda sighed, looking frustrated. Because he's been helping me with some personal issues. I didn't want to worry you. It's nothing, really. I felt a surge of anger and hurt. Personal issues that you can't talk to your husband about? Amanda, I saw the messages. I saw how close you two were at the studio. It doesn't look like nothing to me. She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. James, you're overreacting. Brad and I are just friends. I swear there's nothing more to it. I couldn't take it anymore. Then show me all messages. Prove it to me. Amanda hesitated, looking trapped. I can't. They're private. That's not good enough, I snapped. If there's nothing to hide, then show me. Otherwise, how am I supposed to believe you? She stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair. I can't believe you don't trust me. How dare you invade my privacy like this? Her reaction confirmed my worst fears. I felt like my heart was being ripped out. Amanda, if you have nothing to hide, then why are you so defensive? Why can't you just be honest with me? She stormed out of the dining room, leaving me sitting there, stunned and heartbroken. I didn't know what to do. I had hoped for a resolution, a way to fix things, but now it felt like everything was falling apart. I spent the rest of the night on the couch, trying to process what had just happened. Amanda locked herself in the bedroom, and we didn't speak again. The house felt cold and empty, like our relationship. I'm at a loss. I don't know if I can keep living like this, constantly doubting and questioning everything. I want to believe her, but her actions speak louder than her words. Maybe I'm overreacting. but I can't ignore the signs. I'm struggling to hold on, and I don't know if I can take much more of this. The confrontation with Amanda left me reeling. Her defensiveness and refusal to show me the messages only heightened my suspicions. I knew I had to find out the truth, but I needed a plan. I decided to get creative. I took a few days off work and set up a couple of hidden cameras around the house, particularly in the living room and the bedroom. I also installed a GPS tracker on Amanda's car. I felt a pang of guilt for invading her privacy like this, but I needed to know what was really going on. On Friday, Amanda told me she had another yoga session and would be home late. I acted nonchalant, wishing her a good time. Once she left, I parked my car a few blocks away and followed her using the GPS tracker. As expected, she went straight to the yoga studio. I waited outside, my heart pounding, watching the tracker's signal. After about an hour, the GPS signal indicated that Amanda's car was on the move again. This time, it led me to an unfamiliar residential area. I parked a little distance away and watched as Amanda's car pulled into the driveway of a small suburban house. Brad's house. I approached the house cautiously, staying hidden behind some bushes. Through the window, I could see them in the living room, talking and laughing. My stomach churned as I watched them. Suddenly, they moved out of sight. I crept closer to the house, trying to find a better vantage point. I moved quietly, slipping through the door and into the house. My heart was pounding, but my need for the truth drove me forward. I could hear them upstairs. I tiptoed up the stairs, following their voices to a bedroom. The door was half open, and I peeked inside. What I saw made my heart drop. Amanda and Brad were in the bedroom, but instead of the incriminating scene I expected, they were both fully dressed, sitting on the bed and looking at some paperwork spread out between them. Amanda was explaining something, and Brad was nodding, making notes. I felt a surge of embarrassment and panic. Before I could retreat, Amanda looked up and saw me standing there. Her eyes widened in shock. "James, what are you doing here?" Brad looked up, equally surprised. "James, what's going on?" I stumbled over my words, trying to explain. I wanted to surprise you." Amanda's expression shifted from shock to anger. "You were spying on me? You followed me here?" I felt my face burn with shame. "Amanda, I'm sorry. I thought something was going on between you two." Amanda stood up, shaking her head. "I can't believe you don't trust me. This is too much, James." Brad, looking uncomfortable, stood as well. "Maybe I should go." Amanda nodded, her eyes never leaving mine. "Yeah, I think that's a good idea." Brad left the room, giving me a sympathetic but awkward look as he passed. Amanda crossed her arms and stared at me, her eyes filled with hurt and anger. "James, this was supposed to be a surprise party planning session for your birthday. Brad was helping me with some last-minute details. That's why we've been meeting up outside of class." I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. I didn't know. I'm so sorry, Amanda." She shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. "I can't believe you didn't trust me enough to ask. Instead, you followed me and invaded my privacy. I need some time to think about this, James." With that, she walked past me and out of the room, leaving me standing there, feeling like a complete fool. Now I'm back at my friend's place, trying to figure out how to fix the mess I've made. Amanda hasn't answered my calls or texts, and I'm terrified that I've ruined everything with my paranoia and lack of trust. I love her, and I want to make things right, but I don't know how to earn her forgiveness. What should I do now? After the fiasco at Brad's house, Amanda refused to speak to me. She was furious about my lack of trust and the way I invaded her privacy. I tried everything to make it up to her. Flowers, gifts, helping around the house more, and being extra attentive and caring. But nothing seemed to work. Every time I reached out, she shut me down. The walls between us kept growing higher, and the distance felt insurmountable. I was desperate to fix things, to show her that I loved her, and was truly sorry for what I had done. But no matter what I did, Amanda remained cold and distant. One evening, I decided to come home early from work to surprise her. I thought maybe if we could spend some quality time together, it might help mend the rift between us. As I walked into the house, I noticed Amanda's car in the driveway. I stepped inside quietly, hoping to catch her off guard in a good way. But as I moved through the hallway towards our bedroom, I heard noises. Intimate noises. That made my blood run cold. My heart pounded in my chest as I slowly pushed the bedroom door open. There they were, Amanda and Brad, naked and tangled in the sheets, lost in each other. My worst nightmare had come true. I felt like I was going to be sick. My hands trembled and I struggled to find my voice. "Amanda, what the hell is going on?" I finally managed to choke out. Amanda and Brad sprang apart, shock and guilt written all over their faces. Amanda quickly grabbed a sheet to cover herself, while Brad scrambled to get dressed. "James, this isn't what it looks like," Amanda stammered, her face pale. I laughed bitterly, feeling a mix of rage and heartbreak. "Oh, really? Because it looks exactly like my wife having sex with her yoga instructor." Brad, looking uncomfortable and guilty, muttered something about leaving and hurried out of the room. I barely noticed him. My focus was entirely on Amanda. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded, my voice shaking with emotion. Amanda rolled her eyes, her expression turning cold and defiant. "Oh, get off your high horse, James. You drove me to this." I was stunned. "What? How is this my fault?" She threw the sheet aside and stood up, not bothering to cover herself anymore. "You and your paranoid spying. You didn't trust me, so I figured, why not give you a reason not to?" My heart pounded with a mix of anger and confusion. "You're saying you cheated on me as revenge? Because I didn't trust you?" She laughed bitterly. "Damn right. You treated me like a criminal, so I acted like one. Happy now?" I shook my head, anger boiling inside me. "So this was all about getting back at me? You just decided to throw away our marriage for some petty revenge?" Amanda smirked, crossing her arms over her chest. "Oh, please. Don't act like you're so innocent. You were the one who couldn't trust me. You were the one who invaded my privacy and followed me around like some creepy stalker." Her words cut deep, but I couldn't ignore the fact that she had chosen to betray our marriage. "That's your excuse? You're blaming me for your affair?" She shrugged, her expression unapologetic. "Yeah, pretty much. You drove me to it." I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. "How long has this been going on?" I repeated, my voice breaking. Amanda rolled her eyes again. "It doesn't matter. It happened because of you and your stupid insecurities." I felt like my world was collapsing around me. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage was a lie. The woman I loved, the woman I had been begging for forgiveness, had been deceiving me the whole time. I turned and walked out of the room, out of the house, not knowing where to go or what to do next. The pain was unbearable, but the realization that my marriage was over was even worse. Things have taken another turn, and I need to share what's been happening. After the confrontation with Amanda and her blaming the affair on me, I couldn't get her words out of my head. Something just didn't add up. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Her anger, her defiance. It all seemed too rehearsed. I decided to dig deeper. I needed to know the full truth, even if it hurt. I went through our phone bills and found a lot of calls and texts to a number I didn't recognize. It was Brad's. I also decided to check her laptop. She'd been careless and hadn't logged out of her email. There I found emails and chat logs dating back over a year, detailing their affair in explicit detail. They talked about meeting up, about their feelings for each other, and about keeping it secret from me. It wasn't a recent fling or a spur-of-the-moment thing. It was a long-term, well-hidden relationship. I felt a mix of vindication and devastation. My instincts had been right all along, but the truth was far worse than I'd imagined. I printed out everything I found and confronted Amanda with the evidence. She was sitting in the living room when I walked in, a look of annoyance on her face as I placed the stack of papers on the coffee table. "What's this?" she asked, her tone sharp. "Proof," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "Proof that you've been lying to me. This isn't about my lack of trust or me pushing you to cheat. You've been having an affair with Brad for over a year." Her eyes widened, but she quickly composed herself. "So you went snooping again. You just can't help yourself, can you?" I pointed to the emails. "This isn't about snooping. This is about the truth. You lied to me, Amanda. You've been lying to me for a long time." She glanced at the papers and shrugged. "Fine, yes. We've been seeing each other for a while. But can you blame me? You were always gone, always suspicious. You drove me to this, James." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're unbelievable. You cheated on me and you're still trying to make it my fault?" She stood up, crossing her arms. "Maybe if you had trusted me, we wouldn't be here. Maybe if you had been a better husband, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. Her words were like daggers, but I knew the truth now. You're just trying to deflect blame. You made a choice to cheat, Amanda, and now you have to live with the consequences. She rolled her eyes, clearly not taking any responsibility. So what now? Are you going to divorce me? I looked at her, feeling a mixture of sadness and resolve. Yes, I'm done. I'm not going to keep begging for forgiveness when you're the one who destroyed our marriage. I'm filing for divorce. Amanda didn't seem surprised or upset. She just shrugged again. Do whatever you need to do, James. I don't care anymore. I walked out of the room feeling a strange sense of relief. The weight of suspicion and betrayal was still heavy, but at least I knew the truth. I knew what I had to do next. Now, I'm preparing to file for divorce. It's going to be a tough road, but I can't stay in a marriage built on lies and deceit. I deserve better, and it's time to start over. Update. After my last post, a lot of you gave me some great advice on moving forward and getting my life back on track. But I've been feeling a lot of anger and resentment, and I've decided I can't just walk away without doing something about it. I want to make sure Amanda and Brad face the consequences of their actions. The first step was preparing for the divorce. I met with a lawyer who specialized in cases involving infidelity. She was sympathetic and agreed that we could use the evidence I had gathered to ensure the divorce would go in my favor. But that wasn't enough for me. I needed to do something more. Amanda's betrayal had turned my life upside down, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it unscathed. And Brad? He deserved to face the fallout too. I started brainstorming ways to get back at them both, something that would hit them where it hurt. First, I made a plan to expose their affair to everyone. Amanda's family, friends, and even Brad's clients at the yoga studio would know the truth. I knew it would be brutal, but they needed to face the consequences of their actions. I decided to start with Amanda's family. I gathered all the evidence, the emails, the chat logs, everything, and compiled it into a neat package. Then I sent it to her parents and siblings, with a note explaining what had been happening. I wanted them to see the truth, to understand why our marriage was ending. I didn't expect them to take my side, but I wanted them to know the kind of person Amanda had become. Next, I moved on to our mutual friends. I invited a few of them over for a barbecue, acting like everything was normal. When they arrived, I calmly laid out the evidence and explained what had happened. They were shocked, to say the least. I could see the looks of betrayal and disappointment on their faces. Some of them were angry at Amanda. Others were just sad. It felt good to have people know the truth, even if it hurt. But the real challenge was Brad. I wanted to hit him where it hurt the most, his reputation and his business. I knew that if word got out about his affair with a married client, it could destroy his credibility and client base. So I made a plan to expose him publicly. I created an anonymous email account and sent the evidence to every client, business partner, and yoga enthusiast I could find who had any connection to Brad. I detailed the affair, attaching screenshots of the explicit messages and emails between him and Amanda. I made sure to emphasize the betrayal and deceit involved, painting a clear picture of who Brad really was. The fallout was immediate. The yoga studio's Facebook page was flooded with comments and negative reviews. People were outraged, clients canceled their memberships, and Brad's business took a major hit. It was satisfying to see the damage done, knowing that he wouldn't be able to continue his deceitful ways without consequences. Amanda, on the other hand, was furious. She confronted me, screaming and accusing me of ruining her life. She blamed me for everything, refusing to take any responsibility for her actions. "How could you do this to me?" she yelled, her face red with anger. "You've ruined everything." I looked at her, feeling a cold sense of satisfaction. "You did this to yourself, Amanda. You made the choice to cheat. Now you have to live with the consequences." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I knew I had crossed a line, but I didn't care. I needed to feel some semblance of control in a situation that had spiraled out of my hands. Now, I'm focusing on finalizing the divorce and rebuilding my life. It's not going to be easy, but knowing that Amanda and Brad are facing the consequences of their actions makes it a little bit better. But after making some initial moves to expose Amanda and Brad, I realized that I wasn't satisfied. They had both wrecked my life, and I wanted to make sure they felt every ounce of pain and humiliation they had caused me. I decided to escalate my efforts, focusing on hitting them where it would hurt the most. I was determined to see this through, no matter the cost. First, I targeted Amanda's career. I knew she valued her job and her reputation in the real estate community. I gathered all the evidence of her affair and sent it to her boss in HR department, explaining how her unprofessional behavior and infidelity made her untrustworthy. I detailed the time she met with Brad during work hours and the explicit messages they exchanged. It didn't take long for the news to spread through her office. She was called into a meeting with HR and her boss, where they confronted her with the evidence. Amanda tried to defend herself, but the damage was done. She was placed on probation and faced serious disciplinary action. Her colleagues began to whisper behind her back, and her once solid reputation was in tatters. Next, I turned my attention back to Brad. The fallout from the initial exposure had hurt his business, but I wanted to make sure he couldn't just recover and move on. I hired a private investigator to dig deeper into his background. The investigator uncovered some questionable financial dealings and a few shady business practices. Armed with this new information, I sent anonymous tips to the IRS and local law enforcement, making sure they knew about Brad's activities. Brad soon found himself under investigation for tax evasion and fraud. His yoga studio was struggling to stay afloat, and now he had legal troubles to deal with. The stress was getting to him, and I could see from the social media posts of mutual acquaintances that he was unraveling. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted to make sure everyone knew the kind of person Amanda was. I took the evidence of her affair and posted it on various social media platforms, tagging her friends, family, and professional contacts. I made sure to write a detailed account of how she had betrayed me and lied to everyone. The backlash was immediate. People were horrified and disgusted by her actions. Her social circle began to shrink as friends distanced themselves from her. Family gatherings became tense, and she was no longer welcome at certain events. Amanda's world was crumbling, and she had no one to blame but herself. Meanwhile, I began to rebuild my life. I started seeing a therapist to help me work through my anger and betrayal. I focused on my job and took on new projects to keep myself busy. I also began reconnecting with old friends and making new ones, slowly building a support system that didn't include Amanda. Seeing Amanda and Brad suffer for their actions brought me a sense of closure. It didn't erase the pain they caused, but it made it more bearable knowing they were facing the consequences of their betrayal. I was finally able to start moving on. Now, I'm preparing for the final steps of the divorce. My lawyer is confident that with all the evidence of Amanda's infidelity, the divorce will be settled in my favor. I'm looking forward to putting this chapter of my life behind me and starting fresh. This is going to be my last update because I think I finally reached the end of this nightmare. Here's how it all came to a head. After escalating my efforts to expose Amanda and Brad, I started seeing the real consequences of their actions. Amanda's career was in shambles, her social circle had almost entirely abandoned her, and Brad was facing legal trouble and the collapse of his business. But I still felt like there was one final move I needed to make to truly close this chapter. I wanted to ensure that Brad's reputation was permanently ruined in our community. I discovered that the local yoga community was tight-knit and valued integrity highly. So I reached out to some of the key figures in the local wellness scene. I presented them with all the evidence of Brad's affair with Amanda and his unethical business practices. They were shocked and immediately took action to distance themselves from him. Brad was blacklisted from teaching at any reputable yoga studio in the area. His name was Mud, and his career in yoga was effectively over. He tried to fight back, but the overwhelming evidence against him left him with no allies. He was forced to close his studio and leave town in disgrace. With Brad taken care of, I turned my attention to the final act against Amanda. The divorce proceedings were going well in my favor, thanks to the mountain of evidence I had gathered. My lawyer was confident that I would come out on top, but I wanted to make sure Amanda understood the full extent of her betrayal. I organized a meeting with Amanda and our families, under the guise of discussing the divorce settlement. Everyone was there: Amanda's parents, siblings, my parents, and a few close friends. I knew it would be uncomfortable, but I needed them to hear the truth from me directly. As we all sat down in the living room, I began by calmly explaining the situation. I laid out the timeline of Amanda's affair, detailing how long it had been going on and how I had discovered it. I showed everyone the evidence I had gathered, the emails, the messages, the photos. There were gasps and murmurs of disbelief as the full extent of Amanda's betrayal was revealed. Amanda tried to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "Please let me finish," I said, my voice steady. "You all need to understand why this marriage is ending." I turned to Amanda, who was pale and trembling. "Amanda, you blame me for your affair. You said it was because I didn't trust you. But the truth is, you were lying to me long before I had any suspicions. You betrayed me in our marriage. And now, everyone knows the truth." Her parents looked horrified, her siblings were in shock, and my parents were deeply disappointed. Amanda's mother began to cry, and her father shook his head in disgust. Amanda finally spoke, her voice shaky. "James, please, I'm sorry. I never wanted it to go this far. I was angry and confused." I shook my head. "It's too late for apologies, Amanda. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." With that, I handed her the divorce papers. "Sign these. Let's end this chapter and move on." Amanda reluctantly signed the papers, tears streaming down her face. It was a bittersweet moment, but I felt a sense of closure. I had done everything I could to hold her accountable for her actions. After the meeting, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The divorce was finalized swiftly, with the court ruling in my favor. I got the house, most of our savings, and a fresh start. In the months that followed, I focused on healing and rebuilding my life. I continued therapy, which helped me process the pain and anger. I threw myself into my work and took up new hobbies to keep myself busy. I reconnected with friends and family, leaning on them for support. Amanda moved out of town, trying to start over somewhere new. I heard through the grapevine that she was struggling to find her footing, but I didn't care anymore. She was no longer my problem. As for Brad, last I heard, he was still dealing with the fallout of his actions. His reputation was ruined, and he had lost everything he had worked for. Justice had been served. Looking back, I realized that revenge didn't heal the pain, but it did give me a sense of justice. It allowed me to take control of a situation that had made me feel powerless.